Austin, why don't you
Yeah.
tell everyone who the star of the show is? It's you. Who are you?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm a wealth advisor with McCall and Associates. We're located primarily in Brentwood, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee. We do have locations in Southern Tennessee, Northern Alabama, but we work all over. I think we have clients in 35 or 40 different states at this point. Technology's been very, very great in
Yeah.
that aspect. Our focus is on exit planning. And so a lot of advisors do a lot of different things, but our niche is business owners who have a desire to exit within the next 5 years and continue their legacy. We found, and Joe, I know we're going to get into this, that exit planning really is more in depth than 6 months or 12 months out trying to wrangle everything into place in one really fast, race. It really needs to be part of the whole business planning conversation.
Yeah.
And we like to say continue a legacy because building a business is a legacy. There's a lot of identity that goes into that. And so how can you continue that after you exit your business where you're able to find purpose, find value, and wake up every day and feel confident that what you're doing is important. So
Yeah.
that's really what we do here at McCall Associates.
And when you first talked to me about that, I was like, I don't know if you're like yanking my chain because I'm legacy entrepreneurs and you're trying to play to the audience. But no, I mean, I really responded to that. And I feel like we should clarify though. So, I'll talk to business owners and I'll be like, yeah, let's get an exit plan together. But I think when you and I are talking about exit planning, it's a little bit different because I'm like very focused on the business asset. But maybe you could quickly expound on like when you talk about exit planning, I think you're talking about a lot more than just that one moment in time for the business like I am.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think it's great clarification. So our exit planning starts with a value gap analysis. So that's really trying to understand a business owner's golden number is what we call it. So basically, how much are you going to need net fees and taxes, paying off liabilities after exiting your business to be able to do what you want to do post-exit? That's how we bring a lot of value on the personal financial side. We also just act as an advisor in the exit planning space. I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything, but I do know a lot of people that operate in the space that do a lot of different things, whether it's Joe, someone like you, who's able to actually offer advice on the transaction, an attorney who's able to provide contract value, a commercial real estate broker who can add value on if you should sell your property or you should hold it, or how much to even value that, valuation expert. So my role also is to just be a good connector of people. If it's an area of expertise in the exit planning space that I'm not, I guess, privy to be an expert in, I know a lot of people who can help, and I'm happy to sit at the table, listen, and be another set of ears, but really just be a good connector of people in
Yeah.
that space.
And when is the right time for someone to go talk to you? Because I think people start, I don't know, sometimes people come to me, they're like, oh, I want to like just sell it right now or sell it soon. It's like, okay, we can start working on it, but when's the right time to talk to someone like you? Because sometimes I'm like, hey, I think you should talk to, someone like Austin, but I don't know if I'm catching them at the right time for you, so what do you think is ideal? What's that piece of advice?
Yeah, there's a quote when it comes to investing, and I don't know who said it, but the quote goes, the best time to start investing was yesterday. The second best time is today. And I think, broadly speaking, exit planning, but certainly, when it comes to how we provide, help clients, it really is as soon as possible. One quote that we like to use, and we've pulled this a little bit from the Exit Planning Institute, but a business owner, exit planning is not just about selling a business. It's about building a business that is transferable, ready, and attractive at any point in time while aligning the business owner's personal, business, and financial goals together. And the point of that is, as you are building your business, trying to drive revenue year to year, you also need to be thinking long term about the enterprise value of your business. In general, business owners have 80% of their net worth tied up in the value of their business. That's a big piece of retirement. That's a big piece of the personal wealth side. And so while revenue year to year, month to month, day to day certainly is an income driver during these building years, a lot of your retirement is going to be based on what you can exit your business for. And the fact that 50% of all exits are involuntary means that that offer can come at any point in time. And so starting really from day one of crafting your business to be transferable at any point in time is ultra important. If you're thinking about, I have a date somewhere out in the universe that I'd like to exit my business and I want to start planning now in preparation of that date, I think 5 years, 5 to 6 years is a really good number. The reason is, if you're in a business that qualifies for QSBS stock, you need more than 5 years to kind of do that. There's some tax benefits there, but also, reducing owner centricity. Joe, you and I have talked a whole lot about that. A lot of business owners just kind of have a high paying job, right? The business is solely reliant on their
And there's
day-to-day
nothing wrong
work.
with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. But when you go to exit your business, that
Yeah.
could pose a big problem. I mean,
Yeah.
you represent buyers, you represent sellers. A buyer coming in to purchase a business wants to buy something that will continue operationally to run as the business owner exits, right?
Yeah.
And so 5 years out, starting to put things in place, whether that's a general manager, or promoting key employees inside the business, really to start taking on more responsibility and ownership that allows you not only to get a sneak peek at retirement during those 2, 3, 4 years up to exit, spending more time away from the business and working on the business instead of in the business, but also being able to step away and allow the business to continue is just going to make it more valuable on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said, the best time to start investing is yesterday. And, if you can't do that, then to do it now. Because I run into business owners and, very much like, are you thinking about selling your business? I'll be like, no, I don't want to talk to you, Joe, because I'm not doing that for 3 to 5 years. And then I'm like, no, 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 please talk to me now, because if you weren't planning on thinking about this 5, 6 years ago, then 3 to 5 years is okay, right? Like, if you didn't start thinking about it yesterday, that would have been best. It's okay if we start now, because what I run into when it comes to like, okay, well, I really do need to sell now. One of those 50% involuntary, right? What can I do to maximize the value of your business now? Not very much. And a lot of the investments that you would make over time to make it more valuable, it becomes not worth making the business better after a certain point, right? Like I could do a whole bunch of sales and marketing infrastructure and I could juice sales for the next 6 months. But from a buyer perspective, I'm going to say, I don't know if I really believe it. You could have just had a good couple quarters. You need 3 to 5 years in the financials to bear out the mitigation of owner risk, just improvement of general operations. And so I think that's where it's really great to, hey, go talk to Austin. There's a 3 to 5 year advisory service that you can use to really think about enterprise value so that when you make a voluntary exit, or maybe life happens and you do an involuntary exit, you're still prepared, right? So
Joe, I
that
think that's a great point. Let me just
yeah,
step in and add, I mean, exit planning it can be tricky for business owners to talk about. And I say tricky because not only are a lot of business owners so focused on the day-to-day operations of the company, and rightfully so, they need to be. I mean, that's their income driver, that's their potential retirement. But talking about exit planning, if that word gets out, not only to competitors, but to the community, to employees, there's potential to cause issues there, right? If people think, oh, he's about to sell his business in the next 5 years, what does that mean for me as a general manager, as a manager in the company? Competitors may start circling the wagon. You reduce some leverage. And so I think that just goes back to having people in your corner that you trust, that you're able to talk to outside of maybe your normal circle, that will kind of help drive that conversation, help advise your business to be in a good spot to where the exit really goes as well as it possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned another thing. Who do you talk to? Who's your trusted advisor? And then you also mentioned that you find that, I think it was 80% of kind of the retirement value is like kind of locked up in the business. So you've got to protect that asset. That number, I have found sometimes people falsely equivocate the value of the business with how much they need to retire. And so it comes out of, well, I'm not going to sell this unless I know it's going to sell for blank number because I think that's how much I need to retire. Do you help business owners kind of figure out what that right number is? Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's a really critical part of, I can sell the business at the value that it's worth. How much do you need? I don't know.
Yeah. And it's such a good conversation to have. And I talked about the golden number kind of at the beginning of the podcast, but that's really what I was trying to drive home with that point. Our biggest value add pre-sale, apart from just being a good connector of people and a general advisor, is helping clients understand what that golden number is through modeling. When I say golden number, really what I mean is how much do you need your business to sell for post fees, post taxes, post paying off any debts that you have inside of your business.
Yeah.
Basically, what is the lump sum that you take 6 months, a year, however much after the sale of your business? How much do you need to be able to do what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And honestly, that differs depending on the business owner. I'm working with a business owner right now who owns a couple of restaurant franchises. He owns the franchises, also owns the real estate inside of that rent out to the operations.
It's good that they own the real estate.
Yeah, good that they own the real estate. He's
Yeah.
in a great position, but I actually walked him through this week a couple of different scenarios through our modeling that we can do. One is you sell your business and your real estate now for X amount. B, you sell your business and real estate now for a amount larger than that first scenario. What does that do for you? Scenario 3, what if we sell the operations now, but we continue to hold the real estate for 10 years? Or D, what if we hold on to the business, we allow it to grow at a conservative growth rate, and we pay off some of the mortgage on the properties and we sell both in 5 years. And what I'm able to do through modeling, him being kind of getting close to retirement, is say, okay, we know kind of your expenses between now through the rest of your life, kind of broadly. We know that you're going to need cars every 5 years for probably the next, 7, 8 times. We know that you're going to want to travel. Let's build all that in along with, how much we anticipate that you're going to spend. And we can actually carve out, is this net number enough now for you to be able to have a very, very, very good, if not, exceptional chance of success down the line. Yeah. And, that's the biggest thing for me is whether you sell your business for $1 million or $20 million, your lifestyle post-exit is certainly going to play a bigger role on the success of that exit. I think a stat from the Exit Planning Institute is that 75% of all business owners regret selling after 1 year. Now, that regret can mean that they wish they would have gotten more or needed more from their business. It could also be because they wrapped up so much of identity into what they were doing as a business owner and then don't have that passion post-exit. But I think it really speaks to the fact that you need to have your personal financial, your business financial totally combined when you're doing this exit planning.
Right. And you guys have a whole process for figuring this out, right?
Yeah, we have a modeling software that we lean on.
Yeah.
That's really comprehensive. Really, any scenario that you want to build out. What if I buy a beach house in Florida with these proceeds and keep my home here? What if me and my wife take a 6-month trip to Europe and spend X amount? What if we give money to our grandkids or being philanthropically inclined? What if we decide to give a portion of our business to a donor advised fund? The proceeds after that, is there still going to be enough for us to do what we want to do while also benefiting something else? We're able really to build out whatever a client wants and help them get that confident answer of, if I take this step and do this deal, is the aftermath going to be okay?
Yeah. And I love that because I think when we think about managing pre-sale, the business, we're looking at both, levers of revenue and expense, right? Kind of what I'm hearing as well as part of your process is, hey, what's your post-sale life look like? We can kind of plan for, a windfall amount of income, but I also need to understand your expenses, right? Like, are you going to travel more? Is it going to be more expensive? Or are you going to kind of dial back on those things because you're not going, all over the place buying expensive dinners as much, treating clients to things or whatever. So sounds like you've got a good holistic approach and process that can model, like you said, I'm going to buy a boat in retirement. That might be the decision that people regret most, more than staying or leaving in the business might be boat ownership.
Joe, you know what's better than owning a boat?
Selling a boat?
Having a friend who owns a boat.
Yeah. So speaking of maybe making some post-sale purchasing mistakes or successful purchasing, I don't know, depends on your boat viewpoint. What mistakes are business owners on track to make before they talk to you? You know, what's some of those things that you see that you're like, okay, immediate intervention, maybe?
Yeah. I'll kind of hit on what you just spoke about first, because I think it's really in my top three. People don't have a realistic perspective on the expense that they're going to have after they sell their business. And I speak to this mostly because I think as a human race, most of the time we're too optimistic in what we can do in the future. And I say that because of this. It's easy for me now to say, oh, I'll spend less money next year because I won't have ABCD expense, or I'll cut back on ABCD. I'll start working out next week, right? And business owners, and I throw myself into this category, we're optimistic on the future. And so a lot of times, when they look at a plan, we'll hear clients come to us, we'll talk about selling a business, and they'll be like, I'm spending $20,000 a month now, but after I sell my business, I know I can cut that down to about 12 or 13. And we go in and we model all that out in our modeling software, and the plan looks great. But the truth is, they're going to get into retirement, and it's really hard to cut expenses down from where you're at currently in your living situation. The client that says, hey, I can go from 20,000 to 12,000 a month, most of the time it looks more like 20,000. And so you need people in your corner that have the experience, through walking through these situations in the past, to be able to say, hey, I know you think that, and I hope that's the case, but let's be very conservative in our estimation here and say, for that circumstance that you were spending $20,000 a month for the rest of your life, and make sure the plan still works under that circumstance. So if you can't cut expenses, we know that the amount that you're going to be receiving from the sale of your business still works. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which we've talked, a lot about, is just waiting too long to prepare for the sale of the business. Yeah. Not only do you lose out on some of the enterprise value that you're able to receive at the sale, but that net number ends up being less because you might have liabilities that you're paying, but you also might have expenses that you're running through the business that reduces the EBITDA number. You may have an owner centricity problem. There may be tax strategies that you could have put in place 2, 3, 4, 5 years pre-exit that you weren't able to because you didn't have the time. And so it's really coming to the table well before you're even anticipating or thinking about selling. And the last thing that I'll say, and I'll turn it back over to you, is, and we've talked a little bit about this, just being comfortable with who you are and your identity and your passions and your pursuits post-exit. I'll tell a story that I think really hits home with this. There's a business owner who decided to sell his business and found a buyer. They came to the table. They agreed on the price. The business owner was very, very happy with the proceeds he was going to receive for the business. He wasn't going to stay on for any period of time. The buyer wanted to take over the business completely. And so they did this whole deal, really long due diligence, as you know, Joe, and they get to the final day. It's a Friday, and the buyer's at the closing table, and the seller is absent. They're not coming. They're not coming. They're not coming. Eventually, they walk through the door, and the seller says, hey, I'm excited to sell to you, but can I come in and work on Monday? And the buyer says, well, no, we're actually paying you not to come in and work on Monday. And the seller says, man, I'm sorry, then I can't do the deal. And that's an extreme example of something falling apart at the closing table. But what I think hits home is, again, rightfully so much of a business owner's time is tied up in the operations and the success of a business. And whether we allow ourselves to or not, it just becomes a lot of who we are as business owners. We are identified that way. So-and-so owns the laundry cleaning business, or, the bowling alley. And that becomes a lot of, synonymous with our names and our reputations. And so finding a way to find importance and passion outside of the business that you can step into and pour into, whether that be a philanthropic cause, whether that be another business that you're going to start, whether that be spending time with grandkids, is super important. And as much as I like golf, I love golf. Here's blueprints of golf courses behind me. Playing golf every day for the rest of your life isn't an option. We need to have things that actually matter to us if we're giving up something that is so important.
Yeah. No, I made a little video a week or two ago about, top 3 things that you can do once you sell your business. And my third one was like joking, but also not joking, of you can start another business. Probably, don't violate any non-compete clauses, but I think for a lot of business owners, one of the reasons that they've been so successful is that they do pour their identity into their business. They've created this legacy, and then it's like, what am I going to do Monday morning? Well, maybe you need just like another business that's a little bit different to occupy your time, or a hobby. And I've seen that as well. I talked to an owner who had a, construction services business, and then they were kind of like doing some kind of smoked meats on the side off their farm, and like they wanted to sell their big business to fund retirement, but also because, this other like smoked meats thing is a lot more fun. So it's like, yeah, go ahead, start another business, keep yourself occupied, maybe something a little less intense and, customer facing as, what you're doing now.
We have a business owner we're working with right now in Southern Tennessee, Northern Alabama, that has a very, very successful business, will most likely exit for 8 figures. But he also has a side project on the side. I won't say what, but he has a side project on the side that he's really passionate about, and he's in his mid-50s. And so his goal is to sell the business at this point in time, knowing that he could grow it for a larger valuation, but the exit price and the net proceeds he'll receive is enough to have him support himself and his family through the rest of his life. And exiting his business now in his mid-50s will allow him to do what he's passionate about on the side. And that's something where I can, see from my point of view, this is going to work just fine after the exit because of what he has on the other end.
One thing I'd also like to add on, like what you can do in advance to prepare, and something that I think people are not thinking about, is selfishly plug in a business broker a few years out, right? I think one of the things that clients don't see on my end, because if I'm doing my job right, they don't see it, is that I take the brunt of a lot of like criticisms about the business from potential buyers. What about this? I don't like that. What's going on here? This is why I don't like this. I believe in the businesses that I'm representing, and obviously the sellers, yourself, like we see the value in it, but I can play devil's advocate early on to say, man, like this is what we're going to get beat up on, right? In 3 to 5 years in advance, that gives us the time to build those defenses. So it's one of those things where like you write a paper, right? And you could be defending just the substance of what you wrote in your ideas, or it's like, okay, break this into 2 paragraphs, right? Like you much rather be defending these little things versus core operational decisions. And because I take a lot of heat from potential buyers of like, trying to negotiate down and pick on these things that they don't like, we can be proactive about kind of how we present it and what's core, the operations and the EV of the business.
Yeah. I think to, make it applicable to everyone, for every homeowner out there, if you have a desire to sell your home within the next 5 years, 3 years, waiting until a month out, 2 months out to pull in your real estate agent and come over and say, hey, I'm ready to sell my home. There's a lot less that the real estate agent can advise you to do to get the house in a preparation to sell than if you were to do that 2, 3, 4 years out, where the real estate agent could come in and say, hey, you need to clean this up. You need to clean that up. If you do things A, B, C, and D, we'll be able to get a higher price for your home when you go to market. I mean, Joe, working with you is the exact same thing. The pitfalls you've gone through before you're able to advise clients on, hey, if I went to market with your company today, those would be the issues. But we're not going to market today. So we can actually put plans in place to help fix those things.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked a little bit about value. You've talked about kind of business improvement. What can people do to maximize value, minimize fees, and also on the tax front? Because I feel like that's also top of mind. High-level strategies that you've seen work.
Yeah. Good question. So I'm not a CPA. I want to say that up front. Okay. I know enough to be dangerous, and I certainly would advise anybody looking for a sale to find a very, very good CPA, not only who knows how to mitigate taxes year to year on the business, but knows how to mitigate and structure a business to exit tax efficiently when you go to sell. A couple of things that I've seen that have worked really, really well. Number one is trying to structure the business on the sale for most of the proceeds to be categorized as long-term capital gains, not as regular income. Now that can be tricky, whether it's an asset sale versus a stock sale. Stock sale, it's going to be a lot easier to structure it for capital gains tax, but I think only 30% of all sales of businesses are stock sales. The other 70% are asset sales, which means, if I own a business and have 10 trucks and some equipment to help me, and I've got $1 million worth of equipment. The buyer is purchasing those assets and assuming the name of the business, but not buying stock in the business itself. The issue with that is a lot of times business owners depreciate those assets over time to help save taxes year to year. So when you go to sell those assets, the trucks, the equipment, a lot of times you have to pay income tax on the actual value versus what you've depreciated. So all of that to say, working with a good CPA 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance to help get your business in a standpoint that you can sell it and not pay the maximum amount of tax is super important. Another way, if it is an asset-based sale and you have regular income taxes, do an installment sale, which is just the fact that you're not taking 100% of the proceeds in year one. You're able to spread it out over the course of years, which hopefully can put you in a lower tax bracket, which can certainly help. A couple of other things. I mentioned qualified small business stock. This is a fun party trick by telling people that they could potentially sell their business for little to no tax. You have to have a C Corp. You have to put that in place more than 5 years out, and it excludes some industries from that potential. So, but that's just something, again, to talk to your accountant about. We won't get in the weeds there. The last thing I'll say, and this is something that hits home for me, again, being loving philanthropy and charitable giving, is what I see business owners do a lot if they haven't done a bunch of pre-planning is, let's just say a business owner sells a business for $10 million. They have a desire to give 10% to charity. And so they receive $10 million and they write $1 million check to, their favorite charity and, or church or organization. So what they've done is they received $10 million in proceeds and they've written off $1 million of it, of that 10 million. One thing that they could do instead is before they sell their business, give a portion of it to a donor advised fund. A donor advised fund is a conduit organization that's able to hold assets that you get a charitable deduction from now, but you don't actually have to give it to an organization until later on. And the reason this is important is, again, the same business that's worth $10 million, let's say a year or two before they go to sell, they give 10% of the business to a donor advised fund. So when they go to sell the business is only selling for $9 million. They only have to pay tax on the $9 million. Why this is important is the $1 million that you gave to the donor advised fund, you also get $1 million deduction from that. And so instead of getting $1 million deduction off of the 10 in the first scenario, you get $1 million deduction off of the 9 million in the second scenario by doing the exact same thing, which is giving $1 million to the charity that you love most. And so it's just little tips and tricks and strategies like that where you're not doing anything crazy, to minimize your tax to the smallest possible dollar, because you're going to pay taxes. Like that's just a reality. It's maximizing what you're already planning on doing to be the most tax efficient possible.
And that's where I think, your role is really important in all of this, because a lot of business owners probably, I would guess by the time they talk to you, they already have a CPA. And that CPA probably has a perspective on what's going on with the business, how to manage it annually to be tax efficient, right? That's their role. But I feel like there's a lot of value in what you do, Austin, of quarterbacking the big picture strategy, understanding here's all the maximization of value for your business, your post-sale life, and here are the different resources to put in place for a lot of them. Because I think without a good quarterback, every player is just kind of like, this is my little role. I guess I'm going to do it the way I see fit, and I'm not sure what the big picture is. But you I think you're really able to capture that with your process and, being a trusted advisor for someone pre and post sale, in and out of the business.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, Joe. Yeah. We all work better together, right? Yeah. And if you're operating in silos, the only view and scope that you have is that silo, right? Yeah. And so, but if everybody's able to come to the table and talk, not independently, but together as one, I mean, the only person that's going to benefit is the client, right? I mean, that's their best chance of success.
Yeah. And so in working with business owners, so obviously I want to focus a little bit about how you and I might work together. So you're my quarterback, Austin. What plays do you need me to run? How do you envision, a broker and an advisor like yourself working together? What's that relationship look like in your mind?
Yeah. So I think, Joe, it works hand in hand. my role and your role. A business owner needs both of us to succeed in what they're trying to do and exit the business. My role being more of a strategist and an advisor on not only what does life look like post sale, but also, being able to connect with different professionals, I think is ultra important. Like you said, as a quarterback, being able to have a perspective and view of the whole field. But Joe, the only way it executes is through somebody like you. So having a good relationship between the financial advisor and the broker. Again, it goes back to operating in silos versus operating together. If we can be in contact and working together, the client's only going to benefit because we can chat about, okay, if we sell for this amount or this amount, that's going to make a difference in the client's life post-exit. And so we just all have a better viewpoint. We all have greater perspective, and the client ends up winning in the end. So you need really good professionals in the brokerage space. You need really good professionals in the advising space, as well as all the other areas of exit planning. And it's important to not have one person that does it all, but a team that work well together.
Yeah, I love that. So Austin, thank you so much for being here. Anyone who's watching this, I think the obvious question at this point that they have in mind is, how do I get in touch with that guy? Where are they? Like, how do I reach them? So please remind everybody how to get a hold of you and your firm and what the best way to reach out is.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I appreciate you saying that. And I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of
This has been a
course.
lot of fun. Yeah, so you can reach us easiest at our website, www.mccallandassociates.com. You can send me an email, austin@mccallandassociates.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and so feel free to find me there, and send me a message. I also write a newsletter monthly about exit planning for business owners. And so you can feel free to subscribe to that, on my LinkedIn as well. That's where I post it. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm everywhere you can find me, McCall Associates or Austin Coley, financial planner. I should pop up. And I'd love to just have a conversation. Our service model is really 4 steps. The first one is discover. I want to learn about who you are, what you've built, and what you want to do post-exit. And if I'm a good fit, great. If not, I want to connect you to somebody who can help you with what you need. And from there, we can move into that design modeling phase and then implementation and maintenance. So would love to have the conversation if you think it would be helpful.
Great. Well, also I'll make sure that we put all the links and ways to get reach of you and like kind of captions in the comments here. But I appreciate you coming on. Thanks
Yeah,
again.
Joe. Thanks again.